Did you know that only 65% of women have an orgasm during sex compared to 95% of men? It's not because women are complicated. It's because most of us were never taught how a female body actually works. I'm Dr. Rena Malik, urologist and pelvic surgeon, and welcome back to the Rena Malik MD podcast, your source for evidence-based information about your sexual health and more. Today, I'm going to teach you the real science behind female pleasure. We're talking anatomy, arousal, the truth about the G-spot and squirting, and practical techniques that are going to make you a more confident lover. Now, here's the problem. Most men get zero real education about female anatomy, and women often don't either. So it's like the blind leading the blind. And most people actually learn about sex, not from school, not from their parents, but from pornography, which is far from accurate when it comes to what real sex is like. So I'll start with some basic anatomy. The entire genital area is called the vulva, not the vagina. This includes the outer lips, or the labia majora, as well as the inner lips, the labia minora. And these can vary enormously in size, shape, and color from person to person. Someone may have long inner lips, someone may have short ones, and that's all within normal. Next up is the clitoris. This sits on top of the vulva, above the urethra and the vagina, and it's covered by a clitoral hood, very much like a prepuce, like men who have foreskin will also cover the head of their glands. Now, the beautiful thing about the clitoris is it's the only organ in the human body that is there only for pleasure, and it's the most reliable route to orgasm and pleasure for a woman. Now, the little button that you see, that's actually just the tip of the iceberg. Literally. The clitoris is actually a much larger organ that extends deep into the pelvis and has two legs that wrap around the vaginal opening. And we're talking about this organ that has over 10,000 nerve endings. That's twice as many as the head of the penis. And interestingly, we just learned this not so long ago about how many nerve endings it had. Before, the studies that were done on the clitoris were done on animals, and they thought it was 8,000 nerve endings. But within the last 5 years or so was when we actually discovered the real anatomy and the real nerve endings that are on the clitoris. Now, think about that for a second. The clitoris has more nerve endings dedicated purely to pleasure than any part of your body. It's not there just as a bonus. It's actually the main event. So when I first learned this in medical school, I was shocked. The clitoris and the penis develop from the exact same tissue. They're homologs, and they're just essentially the same organ. They're arranged differently. So if you think about what feels good on your penis, that's a pretty good starting point for what's going to feel good for your female partner. And that's because it's the exact same tissue. It engorges just like a penis. It gets hard, it gets bigger, and it detumesces. Now, underneath the clitoris is the urethra, where urine comes out, and then the vaginal opening. And this is a structure that probably everyone listening is familiar with, but it's essentially a muscular canal where a penis or a toy or a finger can enter. Now, just to complete the picture, underneath the vaginal opening is the perineum, and that's the area between the vagina and the anus. Okay, so that's basic anatomy. Now, when you want to actually learn how to pleasure a female and you look online, you see all sorts of headlines like, here, make sure you get the G-spot, the A-spot, the C-spot, make her squirt, and so on and so forth. But what the hell does that all even mean, and does it even matter? Let's start with the G-spot. Every guy's heard about it, and most think they need to find it, and it's like this magical button, and they're looking in the wrong thing entirely. Now, the G-spot was named after Dr. Ernest Grafenberg, who described it in the 1950s. And it's not really a spot, it's actually a zone that's 1 to 2 inches inside the vagina on the anterior vaginal wall. And this is where several structures come together. You have the internal parts of the clitoris, or the shaft, that's above it. You have the urethra, as well as the periurethral tissue, and the Skene's glands. Now, the Skene's glands are like a male prostate. Essentially, they're also developed from the same tissues. And so these also have nerve endings, and they can be pleasurable when stimulated. And it's also got a lot of nerves there. And so it can feel very pleasurable when stimulated. However, it has less nerve endings than the clitoris. So while some women will find it very pleasurable, the clitoris will still be more pleasurable because it has more nerve endings. And ultimately, some women love being stimulated there, others feel nothing really special, and some actually find it uncomfortable. And all those responses are completely normal. And when you look at the research, there is a huge variety in how sensitive people are. So what I suggest to you is stop hunting for the G-spot like it's some buried treasure. If you want to actually explore stimulating this area, here's how to do it. First, of course, start with external stimulation and arousal. Once she is aroused, you can go internally, and you can use a finger or digit into the vaginal canal and use like a come here or come hither motion with your fingers. And then, do it gently and pay attention to how she responds to it, and take your time. Remember, sex is supposed to be fun. Now, remember how I said to start with external stimulation lubricant first, that's because most guys get it wrong. They see sex in the media as like this hurry up and penetrate activity where they penetrate and there's immediate fireworks and she's orgasming and he's orgasming and everyone's happy. Now, the honest truth is that unless you've had a partner who walked you through it or someone who really talked to you openly, you never really learned how the female body responds. For example, when you get aroused as a man, things happen pretty quickly. You're ready to go in like 2 to 5 minutes on average. However, for most women, the arousal process takes anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. Her body responds slower. It takes time for the blood to get to her genitals, for her to naturally lubricate, and for her vaginal canal to lengthen and widen so it can be ready for penetration. Now, think about the last few times you've had sex. How long did you actually spend on foreplay before you had intercourse? If it's less than 15 minutes, she might not have had enough time for arousal, and sex might not have been quite as comfortable or as enjoyable as she would have liked, or she might not have had such a strong orgasm, and she might not have told you. Here's another big misconception. Wetness doesn't always mean arousal, and if it's not wet, that doesn't mean that she's not turned on. Lubrication is affected by a whole bunch of different things. It can be where she is in her cycle, some medications you're on, stress, how well hydrated she is, how old she is, if she's gone through menopause, and it really has very little to do with how attracted she is to you. So what I tell people is use lubricant. It makes things comfortable, it makes things slippery, it makes things fun, and it's relatively cheap. And for some reason, we think that, oh, you shouldn't need lubricant, but why not? If things are easy, cheap, and they make things more fun, it is absolutely great to incorporate them into your sex life. And if you're wondering what kind of lubricant to use, well, check out my YouTube channel and check out the video on lubricants where I go through the different types of lubricants and what might be better for you. Okay, now back to arousal. What exactly happens during arousal? So when a woman becomes aroused, her body goes through a very specific set of changes. So first is the excitement phase, and this can last anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, where blood is flowing into the genitals by up to 300% increase in blood flow to the area. Her clitoris swells just like an erection, and her vaginal walls start producing lubrication. The labia or the lips actually begin to swell and change color. They often become darker or more pink and reddish, and the vagina gets longer by about 200%, and the cervix and uterus pull up and out of the way. This is called vaginal tenting, and this is exactly why when you rush to penetrate, it's uncomfortable because her cervix might be right there and her body isn't ready yet. She will also notice that her heart rate's increasing, her breathing gets faster, her nipples get erect. Some women even get what's called a sex flush, which means they get red on their skin of their chest or their face. Then they go to a plateau phase, which has sort of variable timing, but in this time, actually the clitoris might disappear. It goes underneath the hood because it's so swollen, and the lower third of the vagina swells while the upper 2/3 continue to widen and elongate. Her body is still making lubrication, but it now has lubrication from specialized glands called Bartholin's glands. Then comes the orgasmic phase. And when you have an orgasm, a female orgasm actually lasts quite a bit of time. It can last anywhere from 10 to 60 seconds. And her pelvic floor muscles will contract rhythmically about every 0.8 seconds. And it's not just the vagina that's contracting. It's the uterus. It's even the anal sphincter. And this is important, right? Because when you're with a partner, it's very difficult for them to fake this amount of contraction at this rhythmic contraction. And so it's a very easy way to be sure that you've actually led your partner to climax. You will actually feel it around whatever you've inserted in the vagina, whether it's a toy or your fingers or a phallus, you will actually feel those rhythmic contractions. Now, sometimes women have weaker pelvic floors, so you might not feel it as strongly, but you can always ask, right? Did you really climax? Now, the other interesting thing is what happens to your physiology. So the heart rate goes up to anywhere from 120 to 160 beats per minute. That's like cardio level intensity. And it's a truly mindful event. You can't really think about anything else during an orgasm. Many of you have experienced an orgasm, so I don't need to explain it to you, but it feels obviously very, very pleasurable. So what do you want to take away from this is that you should plan for 30 to 45 minutes of intimate time together and make sure you incorporate foreplay, kissing, touching, oral stimulation, and pay attention. Pay attention to her breathing, her sounds, and how her body responds. And check in. Ask her things like, did you like that? Or ask her to show you what she likes. Okay, so now that we've covered sort of the basics, let's talk about squirting. This is probably the most misunderstood and glamorized phenomenon in female sexuality, largely thanks to porn, because it makes it look like squirting is just a normal thing that every woman does. Now, the reality is that studies suggest that anywhere from 10 to 54% of women have experienced squirting. The fluid comes primarily from the bladder, but it's not urine. It's heavily diluted and contains very different chemical markers than regular urine. In fact, it contains something called PSA, or prostate-specific antigen, from the Skene's glands. Now, remember I talked about those earlier. Those are located in the anterior vaginal wall. Their tissue is similar to the male prostate and actually makes PSA. So when she squirts, she's releasing this diluted fluid that's been filtered through the bladder and mixed with secretions from the Skene's gland. Think of it like if urine is coffee, squirting fluid is like coffee-flavored water. Similar origin, very different concentration and composition. The fluid is usually clear, it doesn't smell like urine, and I've been told that it tastes relatively sweet. It's usually expelled through the urethra, and it's usually during very intense arousal or orgasm. Now, I've talked about squirting quite a bit on my channel. I've gone through the research on squirting. I've also talked with Dr. Barry Komisarek about squirting, and he had a very interesting theory about squirting, so make sure you check it out. But I think, again, it is a still hotly debated topic for God knows why, because porn has, again, created this expectation that squirting is like this crazy, ultimate, be-all, end-all of the ultimate lover and ultimate intense pleasure. But the reality is actually far from it. One is that if a woman can't squirt, you're putting enormous pressure on a woman to do something that not everyone can do or even wants to do, and has nothing really to do with how good the sex is. I've actually had females tell me that they're worried because they think something's wrong with them because they don't squirt, or I've had others who tell me they squirt and they're embarrassed about it. And that's actually reflected in literature as well. So if your partner squirts, great. If she doesn't, that's okay too. What matters is that you're both having a great time and having pleasure. Now, let me give you some general tips to enhance pleasure. So the good news is you have feedback from your partner. Her body is going to tell you everything you need to know if you pay attention. You want to watch and notice, is her breathing getting faster and deeper? Notice, is she having muscle tension? Are her thighs tensing up? Is her back arching? Listen to the sounds, not just the moans she's making, but like listen to the breathing patterns and pay attention to how she's moving. Is she moving towards your touch, or is she moving away from it? If she's moving away, pulling back, or very quiet, check in. Is this okay? Do you want me to try something different? Or just encourage her to move your hand or your mouth where she wants it to be. Now, if she's moving towards you, she's breathing harder, she's making sounds, keep doing what you're doing. Ideally, you don't want to change techniques too much if she's really starting to build up, because consistency can help build intensity. Now, guys, communication during sex is awkward and certainly can be awkward at first, but you can really make it sort of hot and enticing if you do it correctly. You can ask your partner where they want to be touched. Again, you can give them an invitation to move your hand or your mouth wherever it feels good, and give them positive reinforcement throughout, like, I love when you do this, or this really turns me on, or ask them what turns you on. And the reality is everyone is a little different. So your playbook that you use with your last partner might not work with this partner. And you're not a mind reader, so you can't figure out what they're feeling or thinking if you don't ask them. Now, guys, what I found from talking to, thousands of people about their sex life is the people who have the best sex are really the ones who pay attention to their partners, who communicate, and focus on their partner's pleasure as much as their own. The other thing I want you to consider is when you're with your partner, use all your senses and the whole body. Don't just focus on the genitals. Think about the neck, the ears, the breasts, the inner thighs, and the lower back. Even the feet can be incredibly sensitive and erogenous zones. Spend time exploring her body, and this can enhance arousal and ultimately lead to stronger and more intense orgasms. Now, let's talk about something that might be even more important than the techniques that you use, and that's the mental aspect of female pleasure. Now, women are generally more able to reach orgasm when they feel emotionally safe and mentally relaxed. And so think about your own experience. So when you're stressed about work, when you're worried about your performance, or you're feeling disconnected from your partner, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get an erection. Now, not always, but the reality is that men look at sex as a stress reliever, whereas women see it sometimes as something different. Female arousal is very sensitive to psychological factors. Research shows that women are more likely to experience what scientists called spectatoring during sex. And that's essentially when your mind is like outside of your body and it starts monitoring and judging what's happening during sex. She might be thinking, am I taking too long to climax? Do I look okay from this angle? Is he getting bored? Why can't I just relax? And that mental chatter makes it very difficult for her to be in the moment. And here's where you can help. So one, it's not about just being nice or just being a good person. It's It's also making her know that you are enjoying yourself. Make sure you tell her that she looks beautiful, that you're enjoying the process, and you're not just racing to the orgasm. Say things like, I love taking time with you, or there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And also, it takes time for women to get into the mindset for sex. So start building intimacy even long before you're going to have sex. We always say foreplay starts in the morning. So you can send her a text, let her know you're thinking about her, or a cute emoji, caress her back gently, maybe even help her with some of the chores that are adding to stress in her life. And this can ultimately help sort of build this base of desire and cultivate desire in your relationship. Now, lastly, I want to talk about a few things that will instantly derail female pleasure. So you want to avoid these mistakes when you're with your partner. Mistake number one is treating her clitoris like a doorbell. Guys, this isn't a button that you mash repeatedly hoping something's going to happen. The clitoris can be very sensitive, and some women like a lot of direct pressure and a lot of women don't. So you got to work with her, figure out what is enjoyable and avoid things that will cause discomfort or numbness. Start gentle, not directly on the clitoris, and just see what she likes. Mistake number two is being a jackhammer. So fast, hard, repetitive motion might work in porn, but in real life, it may not work and is more likely to cause discomfort rather than pleasure. Most women prefer more of a varied rhythm, pressure, and movement, but go from her cues. Her body will move with you. Mistake number three is changing techniques right when something's working. I cannot stress this enough. When she's responding positively, that's your cue to keep doing exactly what you're doing. Don't slow down or try stop to do something else. Consistency is what's going to build her arousal to climax. And mistake number four is making it about yourself. The moment you start thinking, I need to make her climax, or I should be able to do this, you've made it about you instead of about her pleasure. Sometimes she might climax, other times she won't, but she'll still enjoy the intimacy. So just focus on how she feels and don't stress too much about it. Mistake number five is ignoring her feedback. So if she moves your hand or guides you to a different spot, don't take it personally. Just realize that she's trying to show you what is giving her pleasure. And mistake number six, we've already covered a bunch of times, but rushing to penetration. So remember, it takes you about 5 minutes to become fully aroused, whereas a female body can take up to 30 minutes. So penetration before she's ready isn't going to be pleasurable and might even be uncomfortable or painful. And finally, mistake number seven is focusing on the orgasm. Guys, everyone loves a good orgasm, but it is a journey, not just a destination. People can enjoy all parts of intimacy, even if they achieve orgasm or not. So take the pressure off orgasm as the only successful outcome you can have, because there's so much more to sex and intimacy than just orgasms. Now that you've watched or listened to this episode, here's your homework. Plan an intimate session this week where your only goal is her pleasure. Don't focus on penetration or orgasm. Just focus on exploring what feels good. Make it about being a detective, being curious, and find out what she enjoys. And I guarantee you that's going to help you learn more than any video on technique or porn video or anything ever.